Mouse Rebel News fans, very interesting news coming out of Syria at this time. It appears as though in the north end of the country, different factions within the FSA are now starting to combat each other. There are now reports of skirmishes between different FSA terrorist groups. Now, some of them are really upset about the beheadings and the murdering of civilians that the FSA does that the Western media just completely overlooks. And some of them are not happy with it, and that's not the way they want to operate, and, well, I can't really blame them. Murdering civilians is pretty awful. Now, a lot of these incidents seem to be groups that are not affiliated with Al-Qaeda attacking Al-Qaeda people, and Al-Qaeda people attacking those that are not affiliated with Al-Qaeda. So we could see that, once Al-Qaeda starts coming in the mix, there tends to be this problem all over again. Now, a lot of it seems to be aimed at the Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham. It's an Al-Qaeda group. The leader collects people from Iraq and has them fight jihad against, such and such group, whatever. Now, the thing is, this group is starting to take power, like they're starting to come to the forefront and be the head of all the forces. They're starting to become the dominant group, whereas previously it was the Nursa Front. Now these people were the leaders, so now there's what's a power struggle between these two groups to see which one is going to be the head of the FSA. What's it going to be? A pack of mercenaries or Al-Qaeda that's going to be receiving the most of the CIA money? Now, news of this comes at a very good time. Just as the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt has failed, they've been very terrible to Syria. They have funneled tons of weapons and people into Syria to fight the Syrian government. So this is great timing. This is another huge crack in the FSA's infrastructure. So this is really good for them. Contradiction. That's what we're seeing here. What we have is imperialism invading a country. And that's the main contradiction right now between the people and the imperialists, and there are secondary contradictions surrounding that. On the imperialist side, there are contradictions just as there are on the Syrian side. All the little different terrorist groups that make up the terrorist organization of the FSA are now battling each other because they are in contradiction with each other. And these contradictions are antagonistic. The Islamic fundamentalists who have a particular view of Islamic law are coming up against others who either don't want Islamic law or they have a different interpretation of it. And then you have a power struggle between different groups, which are even greater contradictions inside. This is the threat that the FSA faces, and what will probably be their defeat if they end up losing. Now, on the other side of the primary contradiction is Syria, and Syria has its own people. It has the different groups within there, the different religious groups and whatnot, but we see that they're non-antagonistic. There are contradictions between different groups and what they want, but these contradictions among the people are non-antagonistic, which is what allows them to work together so well. That's what we need to understand when looking at contradictions between different groups, antagonistic and non-antagonistic. The imperialists create their own antagonistic contradictions that will probably in the end up being what destroys them. Now, another contradiction that exists in this situation is the issue of the Kurds. Now, the Kurds have never been on good grounds with the Syrian government. But because of the new primary contradiction of imperialism, Bashar al-Assad is taking a very smart move and largely staying out of their territories. Yes, there are skirmishes between the Syrian government and the Kurdish rebels, but for the most part, Assad is staying out of it. And in doing so, he's lopsiding that contradiction towards the imperialists. Now, the Kurds are fighting the imperialists more than they're fighting Assad, and this is a very smart thing to do. And I do, in a way, welcome this because I believe the primary contradiction is the imperialists. They need to be destroyed, and then any contradictions that exist among the people will be settled after that once they become the primary contradiction. What we're looking at here is a very special situation. The primary contradiction overall is changing the aspects of the secondary contradictions that exist within the country. But so we can see that. We can see how the addition of the imperialist forces is altering the things in the country that take on new characteristics, and they function in different ways. They present new antagonisms between the different contradictions. And these new quantitative forces are eventually going to break out into a qualitative change, which is probably going to be the defeat of the imperialists, if it's possible, if they can hold everything together. So now we get a better idea of how contradiction works in the imperialist situation, which is the major contribution that both Lenin and Stalin gave with the contradictions of imperialism.